I've been looking forward to this one for a few weeks now, ever since Mitch decided to finally return my calls on WhatsApp. We've had the pleasure of getting to know each other for the past few years. We've placed players in his program, and we've watched him turn programs around from, let's be real, winning one game a season to being nationally ranked the next. He's now moved on to the professional ranks, which I believe has been thoroughly deserved. I've got a lot of respect and admiration for him, as do the SCA lads who have had the pleasure of working with him previously. Big Mitch, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. So let's rewind the clock. Let's talk a little bit about your origin, growing up in the north of England. What was that like?
Yeah, so I grew up north of England. Obviously, two sisters, lived mainly with my mum. Just played football every day, to be honest, every chance we could with the friends, just like everyone does back home. Day and night at school, when we got home, whatever we could do, played. So grew up around the game. Did okay in youth settings, and then just remembered a few friends came to the States to play college soccer, and I thought I'd wanted to give it a go, and it turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life, to be honest.
Yeah, brilliant. Who'd you play for back home growing up?
So I played for a few different clubs in my younger days. Main club I played for was Wilington AFC, so I spent a lot of time with them. I did a little bit of trials with Hartlepool United when they were kind of in League One. Didn't last too long there, if we're being honest.
Yeah,
And then went back to Wilington, got into the first team set up there in men's football quite at a young age, playing for the men's when I was 16, 17. And that's where I spent most of my youth days, yeah.
yeah, nice. So in like terms of the pyramid over there, where do Wellington sit?
At the time, they were in League Two of the. Oh, I've forgotten what it's called now. Quite
Yeah.
low, step six, step seven, maybe.
Okay.
Division two. I think they've dropped down a couple of leagues since then. Under new management now, and starting to push back in the right direction. They're actually currently being managed by a few guys that I played with, who are good guys,
Yeah.
good people who know the club inside and out. So they're trying to have a little push and come back up some leagues. But yeah, it was probably step six, I would say. So step four, I believe, is kind of the National League, and you start
Yep.
going down divisions there.
Yeah. Okay. Do you reckon playing men's football at that young age helped you transition to the US?
It definitely didn't not help me. What I mean by that is it helped me in a sense to get to know myself a little bit more and be around men, and kind of how they handled things and what they did. But I don't think it really prepared me for the physicality and the pace of the game in America, and
Really?
what that looked like. I think it helped me be stronger, more physical, and take a beating now and then.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was prepared for how much running was involved in America in college, at least at the level we were at that I was playing. It was quite a lot of back and forward, a lot of transition. I
Mm.
think even down the lower leagues, it wasn't as much of that. Obviously, we're not
Yeah.
playing with guys who are at the fittest in the peak element of training type things, and some of them are working day shifts and then coming in to play games and training at the time. So yeah, I think it was different in that, but I think it prepared me more in the stronger, take a beat, and kind of get to know who I was a little bit more as a player.
Yeah, that's fair. So, what did your recruitment process look like? Like, how did you get yourself over to the States? Did you use an agency? Did you do it yourself? Like, what did that sort of experience look like?
Yeah, so I use an agency, Sport Recruiting USA, I believe was the name of them. I think at the time I came across in 2012, so I started that process around 2011, and I don't think it was as accessible as it is now in terms of agency, in terms of knowledge. And I
Yeah,
definitely think that's something I've seen over the past 10 years, and when I've been involved in the game and recruiting, just how much more information's out there, how many more agencies are out there. The company I came with, it was pretty much one guy. He was an older guy, so it wasn't as big as it is now. But
mm,
I mean, for me, going through the agency and using him was perfect. I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own.
mm.
Just all the little intricacies and knowing the ins and outs and what to do, when to do it, the visa process stuff, just really made it streamlined and smooth for us to get out here.
Yeah, okay. Now, did you get many offers, or like, what did it look like?
Yeah, I had a few different offers from different places. I probably didn't do research well enough coming out myself.
Yeah,
And then I remember I went to Roger State. I remember they came in quite late in the process, and I just felt like it was the place that I wanted to go to. The facilities were just being updated and new at the time. The scholarship offer was obviously really good at the time. So yeah, it just felt at the time the right place to come to, but it was a bit of a last minute pivot decision, if I'm being honest.
yeah, okay. How come was it so last minute?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they just got a hold of my information a little bit later than everyone else had. I was quite close with a couple of schools that I was going to go to or that I was thinking about, and yeah, I don't know how. Well, I know how after being a coach is you just get some profiles come through, or you just see a player, or somebody says, "Hey, have you seen this person?" The way it works like that, and yeah, it just worked out well. And I'm glad I went there. Obviously, as we'll get into it, it kind of set me up for what happened, continuing through up until this point in the journey.
Yeah, sure. Because I know when we first spoke, you had a lot of admiration for just Oklahoma in general. You know, obviously you spent time in the college career at RSU, MACU, OCU. What was it about Oklahoma in particular that sort of drew you in? You were there for a
Yeah,
long
yeah. Didn't leave for a long time.
time.
I think it was just the people. I honestly do think the people in Oklahoma, at least a lot of the people that I met along the way, and were just so willing to be invested and to help and want the best for you. I'd not really seen or felt that way, especially growing up where I came from. To be in an environment where so many people were kind of looking out for you and wanted you to succeed and wanted to give you tools to succeed felt different. And that's kind of why I stayed so long, and what kind of kept us there. I mean, we moved to the other side of the state. We moved from the Tulsa area to the Oklahoma City area, but it was still the same thing over there. It was the people that made it.
Yeah, nice. And what was your time like at Rogers? I think you were there all 4 years of your college career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. When I originally went there, they were a NAIA school transitioning to Division Two,
Yeah.
um, and I don't know for sure. So there's some things in here that could be fact checked and it could be wrong. Just like the divisions I was talking about playing back home, that could be fact checked and wrong. But I think at the time I went there, the NAIA were going to Division Two, and something went wrong in the transition period, and we got docked an extra year. So actually, after my freshman year for 3 years, we weren't eligible to compete and play postseason, and that type of stuff. So it was definitely a unique situation, but I came in with a large graduating senior class. I think it was 12 of us, and we all stuck it out and we all stayed. And I know you see a
Okay.
lot now, a lot of people jump ships and leave, and when things are tough, they go. But we all kind of stuck it out, and it was very good. Our head coach at the time, Dirk Larkin, actually just retired. He's moving into administration. Talked a lot about little moments throughout
Mm.
your collegiate season. And it's not, he'd always talk about, it's not about the wins and losses, it's about the moments. Of course, if you win trophies, you remember it. But I think he was right about it. When you look back, it's the away trips, it's the moments in and around campus, off campus with people you're connecting, friends. I think that's what kind of makes it. And then you have little moments of where you win games in big moments. And back
Mm.
then when we were playing, overtime was extra time, overtime was still a thing,
It's
golden
fun,
goal
mate.
was still a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I look at it now and I think I didn't understand it, but when you look back, if you win it, the emotions are high. If you lose, your
Yeah.
emotions are low. So I think
I
it
reckon.
was just, yeah. I think it was just the emotions of them little moments along the way that made it so good. I think it was, again, the people I played with in college, this class we had that graduated. A lot of us still talk every now and then to each other, so I think that's what made it exciting. And then obviously we did like our head coach. He was like a father figure to us.
Yeah.
He taught us a lot of lessons. I genuinely think he helped me really become a man. Obviously, moving away from home, I think he helped me off the field just as much as on the field.
Yeah, brilliant. You talked a little bit there about players jumping ship now quite easily. You know, looking at your situation, going into a school, transitioning, knowing for the next 3 years and the next 3 years that you're going to be there, you're only 3 years of college. You can't play for a conference championship. It actually says a lot about the group that you all said, well, this is good what we've got. And we don't just, jump and move on. You know, like I transferred after year one, so I can sort of relate to it. I do feel like now in the college game there's this massive shift of kids just not getting their own way, doing it a little bit tough. Now with the rules changing, the portal, I can just go and get a transfer. What are your sort of thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think whenever I was playing in college, the portal wasn't in existence at that point.
Mm.
So it definitely the portal has definitely made it easier to move. But I think kind of as I've grown and gone through coaching journey, I think one of my kind of core principles as a person is to be hardworking. And I think when I look back on what I've been through in that journey, I think I stayed true. Like I worked hard in college, knowing that there was no real reward at the end in terms of postseason. And I say that to say this is that I see a lot of young players now come to America or even the Americans go into the college setting, and it's very, very competitive. I think there's a misconception on that players are just going to walk in and start. I think it's very competitive. I think there's a transition period when it's your first year, and I think I see a lot of people that don't get on the field straight away, and they just think it's the team, it's the school, it's the coach. And I think they're a little bit slow, or sometimes even guilty of not looking at themselves and saying, okay, what can I do to work harder to get on this field? And I think now that the portals there makes that move a lot easier. But again, going back to an earlier comment of there's so much information that's accessible, I think if somebody does enough work and finds the right fit, they should try and stick it out and see, and not just jump at the first. Now, if it's 2 years in and you haven't been playing and you're not getting along and something's happened, okay, you can start exploring it. But I think people are just quick to use that as a way to get out. And I think it's a little bit of, for me, my opinion, again, other people might not see this, I think it's a little bit of kind of saving face for them in terms of they don't want to tell people back home or wherever that they've gone somewhere and they're not playing, that they're not being a part of it. I think there's a lot of people that are finding it hard to say that instead of just saying, yeah, I'm going to work a little bit harder this off season and get better. So that's my take on it.
No,
right or wrong?
Hit the nail on the head. And it is hard, right? Like, I went over in my first year and I was sat on the bench for the first half of the season, and then towards the end, once I transferred and went to Brian, I didn't play a whole lot in my last year, and it is probably a little bit of an identity thing, right? Like, you're saying, comparing to, like, friends back home and whatnot, like, everyone knows you as that lad that's gone out to America to play football, and then if you're not playing, it's like, it can be tough. It can be really tough, so I can sort of relate to how kids might feel like that. But like you said, you need to be looking at the bigger picture and thinking, okay, what can I be doing to get on the field here? It's that simple.
Yeah. And I think those people that do that, that do stick it out and work harder and make that gain and get on the field, I think they have a different self-confidence about themselves, and sets them up for a little bit more success later in life.
Yeah. It's funny enough, we've got one lad who's going through this at the moment, who you almost recruited yourself, and it's kind of nice to hear your opinion on how it works, and he didn't play in his first year, but there's been no throwing his toys out the pram, getting photos of him every day going down the pitch, just knocking the ball against the wall, and it's been noticed by everyone else in the program as well, the coaches, etc. And the conversation has come up, like, oh, do I move? And I'm like, no, there's a lot of really good positives where you're at. Stick it out. Give it another year. See how you go. Give it one more year. Experiment, maybe try a couple of different positions, but keep doing the little things that you're doing because you're doing really well. And it's kind of nice to see, because it's not every kid that's going in and going, oh, I'm not playing, I'm going to move. There is some out there that, are, taking your route, for example, and trying to work on it. So, I think it's probably not fair to say it for every kid, but there is a lot of cases out there where that is happening for sure. But you talked a lot about, the importance of, like, Larkin, what he had with you at RSU. Like, what were some of the other really good relationships that you formed whilst you were there?
In terms of just while I was there, or that helped me further down the line?
Mate, you can answer it however you like.
I think one thing I knew early on was that connections were everything. And I think I intentionally tried to build good relationships with a lot of people, and a lot of people in the right areas. I know one person I built a really close relationship with, Scott Parkinson, who also coaches in the NWSL right now. So I actually played against him. Then he was one of our assistant coaches. Then he coached on the women's side while I coached on the men's side at Roger State. And then he went off to big things. So that was a relationship that I stayed close. And then obviously there's different types of relationships. The people who are my college roommates that we still talk to and we're close. The players on the team. And then even people in the administration, building the department at that time have somewhat down the road helped me and called places that I've been on to work at and said, like, good guy, deserving. So even small relationships like that throughout. But I think I was wise enough to know early on that relationships is everything. And also I like people, I like friends, I like talking to people, find out people's stories. So I think that also helps in trying to get to know people as well, to see where people have come from and what they've done and where they're going and what their journey looks like. Yeah,
for sure. No, it's some really good advice for sort of any young kid going over to America. It's speak to as many people as possible, understand their stories. You never know when they might be, of use to you later down the line as well.
Yeah, and I think if you can know connections are important, but not just speak to people for the connection, I might need something in the future, and speak to them in terms of want to become friends with this person, want to get to know this person, want to find out if this person's somebody that sees life similar to how I see it, and find them relationships. I think that becomes vitally important as well.
Yeah, massively. No, I think you've elaborated on that well. Talk to us about coaching. What sparked that interest?
Yeah, I was junior in college, and a guy named Peter Koskovich. I just messaged him the other day. Actually, I haven't spoken to him in a while to see how he was doing. He just asked me one day if I wanted to come out and start coaching. Him and his family came to a few of our games. I'd done some camps for the school, for the program, helping out as a lot of people do. And I guess some of the kids that played on his team at the time were at the camp, said some good things. He asked if I wanted to come out. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. Back home in England, I'd done my FA level 1, so I'd already kind of got involved a little bit in coaching. And I just started coaching, going out whenever I could, volunteering. If I could do this week or that week, if I could get a lift to the field, I would do it. And then probably quite quickly, I realised that I actually really, really love coaching. It's something I was extremely passionate about. And I'd say I was also very realistic and knew I wasn't going to be a pro. I just knew, me personally, at the sacrifice it takes to be a pro wasn't for me at all. And I kind of fell in love with coaching. And then probably the end of my junior year, going into senior, I was like, man, I'd rather coach. I want to coach. I enjoy it. So in my senior year, I started coaching a bit more full-time basis at the club I was helping out at. And then as soon as I graduated, I was full-time in there coaching.
Yeah, brilliant. And then what was your first college coaching gig?
At Roger State, at RSU. Again, a lot of things fell into place. When I graduated, our assistant coach at the time, which was Scott, took the women's head coaching job at our school and opened the assistant coach spot. And I just spoke to the gaffer at the time and said, look, I'm really interested. He knew I was coaching at the club, doing teams, and I wanted to do it. And he let me come in straight away. So as soon as I graduated, I went into coaching at the same place I'd just left.
Yeah, fantastic. And what was it like your first year at RSU coaching?
The first year was probably... The first year at RSU and the first year at Mackey were probably the most challenging. The first year at RSU, just simply because I'd just come off the team, I'd just graduated, so the juniors, the sophomore, the freshmen, I knew them all. I'd lived in the dorms and been around them and knew what everyone did. So that was a little bit of a challenge in that setting of kind of where the friendship boundary and line lies and where the coaching line lies. But also not naive to know it was my first time coaching that level, that age group. So I just spent a lot more time sitting back, observing, taking notes, helping where I could, whatever the gaffer said, can do this, do that, yep, do it. But less forceful, less kind of do it, more of learning. And then obviously as that older class graduate and you get new class and you're helping in the recruitment process, it became a little bit easier and I did a lot more the second year, more involved. And the head coach at the time was brilliant. He whatever you wanted to do, he'd let you do it. He was always the guy that every assistant he had, he wants them to become a head coach if they want that step. And so there's no part that's off limits to him. On the field, off the field, he tried to expose to every area. And he's like, one day if you're the head coach, you've got to do all these pieces. This is what it looks like. So very good learning experience. But I'd say that first year was one of the most difficult just because I'm now coaching everyone I'd just been playing with.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to draw that line of... where your mate versus, you need to be that sort of authoritarian leader sort of role. It's a fine line. I saw it in college as well, with friends that went on to that next level. It's a strange dynamic.
Yeah, and you're looking at them on the field and you're like, I probably know what you were doing last weekend.
Yeah.
that's where it becomes really challenging. So no, but it was a good year. I learned a lot in that year, and obviously kept coaching on the club side and got even more involved on the club side.
Yeah, that's fair. Then MacU comes along.
Yep.
Very successful period there. You ranked first in the nation in the NAIA. Am I correct in that statement?
No, close, but no.
Although first when you
left. Yeah. When I left, they got ranked first. They did. I think my last year there, basically, I believe I left top 5 in the nation or top 10 in the nation when I left. I think we got knocked out in the last 8 of the national tournament, and then obviously left. And then the next year I think they've been ranked in the top 5 now for past 2 or 3 years. They've just been on a relentless spree for the last 5-6 years. But yeah, MacU came around. So I did three and a half years at Roger State. I think 3 years. I think it was, and then MacU came. Yeah, MacU came around. It's one of them. I was still quite young at the time. I think I was 24 at the time. Well, it wasn't that long ago. It feels like a long time ago. I was around that age, and then they came around. Somebody had asked, like, would you be interested in it? And I'm like, yeah. And then you start getting the nervous part of, can I be a head coach? Am I ready? Am I not ready? And I just remember Larkin, our head coach at the time, was just like, look, you'll never be ready for your first one. You just have to go and do it. And if he's like, I think you're ready. I think you can do it. So go and do it. And yeah, I applied for it. Again, some people that I built relationships with in our administration department, knew some people there. So that helped me. And then the AD Marcus Muller, still there, took a chance on me. Obviously, I saw it as a bit of a gamble hiring someone young at that point. So hopefully I returned the favour to him and it paid off. But yeah, then I went to MacU and spent 2 years there.
Yeah, wow. And then the next move comes along. OC. On paper, not an attractive move, and I think this is probably when we first started working together. Obviously, I just started building the business, and take my hat off to you. You were the first person to recruit my first ever male coming out of SCA as well. So it's an interesting one, right? You look at it, OC were Division 2, MacU, you're NAIA, you've just done top 8 in a national tournament, and then all of a sudden you move into OC, who didn't win a game, or maybe won one game the year before. It was a bit of a head scratcher, and fair play, because you did an unbelievable job there, turning that program around. But I just think, from face value, what did you see in that program that thought, I want to go there?
Yeah, so a couple of things. One of them, you'll be like, okay. So I think when I went to MacU, I was very fortunate when I walked in there to have a very, very talented group of players. Like, I think a lot of people don't talk about that, but when I got in there, the group of players that had been left were very good, to be honest. So it was about going to MacU and, again, being a head coach for the first time, trying to implement my style, what I wanted to do, how I believed we could play. I think the first year at MacU we were 15-3-2 and didn't get in the national tournament, and I was furious about it.
Yeah, I would too.
but they said our strength of schedule wasn't strong enough. And my argument to that was, we can only beat who's in front of us. I couldn't plan the schedule, so I had no choice. But it is what it was at the time. We actually went to the Christian NCCAA national tournament, which is in Florida, which was unbelievable, to be honest. We were a week in Florida, incredible. And we won that. So we won that, and we came in the next season, which kind of gave us a little bit of a name. And then we had an incredible year again, and we went to the national tournament, went to the final 8. And then OC comes along, like you said, they hadn't been successful in Division 2. They were a very, very successful NAIA school, and they just hadn't been able to transfer that into Division 2 yet. And I think it was the conference they're in and the region they're in is one of the best conferences, one of the best regions, with the RMAC schools and the California schools. So it was a challenge, and I got caught between do I stay at MacU and try and win a national tournament? And we have a great squad. It's a little bit easier, if you will, in terms of when you're in the top 10 in the NAIA, every agency in the country is calling, can we put this player here? Can we place this player? We think they can go to this level. Can we get them in? But OC came along, Division 2, and honestly, I just felt it was another step in kind of trying to see what I could do, trying to start again. The school was actually closer to the house I lived in at the time than MacU, which was a big reason as well. There was a lot less driving involved, so I was like, okay, that's one reason. But it was a little bit of the challenge that excited me, and a lot of people said it can't be done, and I was like, well, if everyone's saying it can't be done, like, I think it can. Like, I'd like to be in there. I remember I went and met with the AD at the time, and we had a lot of conversation, and then when me and him were chatting, a lot of his questions were like, do you think you can win, and how can you win? And I liked it at the time, because I think a lot of colleges are in and around that level don't talk about winning that much. But he did. He wanted to win. He was a serial winner himself, and he was an AD and a golf coach and won loads. Yeah, so I really aligned with what he was saying. Of course, he wanted all the other values that came with it, which I did as well. It wasn't just about on field. But yeah, it was a little bit of that challenge and a little bit of that, okay, can I prove myself? Like, I walked into MacU, which had a very good squad, but can I go here and prove myself when people don't think it's possible? And I will say I love the NAIA, and I think the NAIA is absolutely brilliant. And the top teams in the NAIA, I think, can compete with anyone. But for me, the Division 2 top to bottom is so much closer. If you're a top 10 team and you're a bottom 10 team, it could still be a very, very close game. And I felt like in the NAIA, there was some games where we would win 5-6-0 and the team could play if I was there or not. And I felt like I wanted to make a bit more of an impact. So yeah, they're the reasons. It was the challenge of being closer to my house or the reasons why I was like, I probably should go here and see what could happen. And I think looking back, it was a really good move. Because obviously I didn't experience anything like I did at OC in my first year at MacU. MacU went there and just winning, and it was like, whoa. Yeah. I was like, oh, this is almost too easy. Like, this is what it is for everyone. Bit unrealistic.
Yeah. Year 1 was interesting, right? I remember, I think I connected with you, would have been, midway through 2021, I think. I think we were in lockdown here in Australia, and you guys were playing, and you took the job late, didn't you? It was like you didn't even have a chance to recruit.
Yeah, I signed on June 1st for the following year, so a lot of the recruiting side was done. I did manage to sign a couple of players. One player did 3 or 4 years there and was very good. Yoop, I'm sure you know him.
Very good player.
I signed him. Yeah, I signed him like mid-June. He was like a last-minute signing.
God knows but he's eligible. He's as old as us.
Yeah, he is. He might be older, mate. He might have kids as well.
He definitely looks it.
Yeah. Hope he's listening. But no, I didn't really get a chance to recruit, and that's okay. I spoke a lot with the AD about it anyway, of kind of giving the group we had at the time a chance to see what they could do and how they could do it, and to really figure out what it was. And it was almost like a free hit year, but never felt like a free hit year. Especially when you're in the trenches. But it almost was okay. Let's see what we have here, what pieces we've got, what we need to get. Let's see what the other teams in the conference at this level look like. What do we need to compete? Is it ball playing players? Is it physicality, height? What areas do we need to make sure we have to compete with them?
Yeah. And what did you identify in that first year in that conference? It's a bloody good conference.
Yeah. I think the physicality and the pace of the game was up, drastically up in every single game. There was no games where you could have a little bit of a rest. I think that was up, and I think that was the biggest thing I noticed. The height, the strength, the pace of players, the teams in transition, how quick they were in certain areas of the field. I think that was a big difference. At MacU, our team was so ball playing, ball orientated. We'd keep the ball, we'd have the ball. Almost like if someone scores 1, we're going to back ourselves to score 2 or 3. When I went this level, I was like, okay, it needs to be. You've got to find a few more athletes that can run and compete at this level, and then you need a few little wizards, technical players on the field.
Yeah, okay. And then obviously, an outrageously good left back from Australia.
That always helps.
I actually shouldn't have said that, because his head's just going to, if he listens to this, his head's just going to grow.
Yeah, it is. We'll just cut that piece out. we won't name him. He's a good lad though. Top lad.
What was your experience with some of the Aussie boys?
I love them, to be honest. Obviously, you're speaking about Elliot. We'll mention him. We'll let his head fill up. I just like one. Obviously, good soccer players, understood the game, athletic, could keep up with the pace, but just how much energy they brought to the locker room and their enthusiasm and who they were for the culture just massively helped. I think it's so important to have different people, unique characters, but people that can bring people together, and I thought Elliot was one of them. I know when we originally spoke with Elliot, we talked about doing a couple of years and then him seeing how he progresses and develops and looking on, and I know even when it was getting to that time and he was thinking about it, I was devastated. I don't want to lose you, Elliot. Like, you're a good lad and you're a good football player. It's hard to find both of them pieces. So yeah, I'm glad he came. Obviously, the journey we went on OC, it speaks a lot about the character of people that wanted to come out and wanted to be with us at the time. Because obviously we haven't talked about it, but our first year at OC, we were 1-11, 1-11-3 maybe, 1 win, 11 losses. That was the first year. Obviously, for me personally, the most humbling, one of the most I've ever learned outside of probably my first year at RSU and then first year at MacU getting into it. But it was a very different feeling for me. going from winning to then losing. But then that next recruiting class, the conversations we had with people and people buying into the vision and wanting to be a part of it and understanding where we were going. And then obviously it comes down to the trust, and then obviously the trust with agencies like yourself for trusting us and sending some of the lads out to us to help us. I think they helped change the programme, to be honest. Hopefully for the long run. I know they had another good year this year, so hopefully they continue to keep going in a positive trajectory.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know Elliot always speaks quite fondly of you and his time at OC. I know he really enjoyed it. So and it was an interesting one, right? Like trying to get him to look at the bigger picture in the recruitment process when you had literally won one game the year before.
Yeah.
Originally, it was no, not going there, and it was like, okay, so let's look at all the other options. Looking at them through, and I just remember saying something to him, and I say it to all the kids, and I'm like, look. Forget how shiny the toys are in terms of your gym, pitches you play on, all that sort of jazz. Whatever school you're going to go to, you're going to have your own weight room. You're going to have probably your own field, your own practice area, your own locker room. Yeah, some things are going to be superficial. They're going to be nicer than the other school, right? But at the end of the day, you go in there to play for a coach, and that could be 4 years of your life. For example, with Elliot, it was 2, and now he's off and he's gone to Division 1, and fair play to him. But that relationship with the coach is by far the most important piece. Like, you could be in the middle of Arizona, or you could be on the beach in West Palm, Florida. But if you're not getting along with your coach, like, it's not going to be a great experience for you, And I sort of said to him, I was like, don't judge him on the season that he's just had, because he liked you a lot, right? That wasn't the sort of selling point that I needed to allude to, but it was the fact that, I'm like, who did you really connect with on the phone out of all the people? And he was like, well, Mitch. I'm like, well, mate, it's a no-brainer. I was like, look at how well he had done previously. I was like, give the bloke a chance. Why don't you go, see what it's like, and then, the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and I think you're spot on. I think it's that relationship with the coach, the staff, and your teammates that ultimately make or break it. So I think you're spot on, and I'm lucky. I know I'm lucky that I had the past 2 years at MacU to fall back on after going through that rough year and being able to say, look, this is the first recruiting class. Because I think without that, it definitely would have been an even harder challenge.
Yeah, for sure. But then all of a sudden, bang! I remember I got the phone call. I was actually sat out there in the backyard, and it's because we'd had a player that had committed to you for the next year moving forward, and it was, I've got a professional gig lined up, and I remember almost like, dropping the phone, going, bloody hell, that's come out of the blue. So where did that all come about from? And you've gone from the college game to the professional game, which I do think was well deserved, but you went from men's to women's. Like that kind of stumped me a little bit. I remember when you called me, I was like, oh wow, okay, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I think I was stumped with you, to be honest. I wasn't necessarily expecting it myself. It all pretty much stemmed from, I was on my USA course. A course and met some amazing people on that course along the way. I did, when I was at MacU, I did some volunteer work for Gotham, who were in the NWSL. So I was doing some free work from afar, helping with some analysis stuff. It's either at MacU or OC. I think it was at the back end of the MacU time, with Scott, who I'd played against, played for, and then coached alongside, so another connection. So did some volunteer work, went up there, spent a week there, met his staff, and I just remember getting a call from him saying Bev, who was originally on his staff, is looking for an assistant coach. She's now obviously the gaffer at where I'm at Racing Louisville. Looking for an assistant coach, is it something you'd be interested in? I was like, of course, I'm always interested. So he kind of connected us, and then I went through like the application stage and process and kind of going through that stuff, and ended up having a really good connection with her. And it turned out that she had some really good connections and knew the people on my A course as well at the time. So she picked up the phone to a lot of them and spoke to a lot of them, and fortunately they had nice things to say. And then it just happened quick, and kind of got offered the job to be an assistant coach in the NWSL. I just had a chat with my wife and thought, it's kind of now or never almost, to go see what it is, see what it's like. It's obviously a different world in terms of the security and safety is probably not as high as it was where we were. But I think coaching in the pro game is an incredible opportunity that I'm obviously grateful for and understand. Sometimes I still ask myself, how did I get from here to here? It's such a jump from Division 2 men to pro women.
Yeah.
And obviously the women's game's massively grown for all the right reasons. So it was just one I couldn't turn down. I remember speaking with my AD at the time, and he said he didn't want to lose me. I never know if that's true. But he said similar things of, it's kind of now or never to try it and see if it's what you think it is and what you want it to be, or do you need to pivot and go back to college, or what does it look like? So yeah, I ended up going there. But I was honestly just as shocked as you were to find out they were going to offer me a job. And then obviously then you have to start the process of ringing some of the recruits that you've signed and letting them know. I will say it's an easier one than telling them you're moving to a different school or you're moving to somewhere else. They were all understanding. And again, it just goes to show that relationship that you can have, because you never know what's going to happen in someone's life.
For sure. Before we touch on a bit more of like the pro game and the differences, let's talk about coaching men, young men, to now coaching full senior women's. Like what's the difference like in your coaching style? Did you feel like you had to adapt? Has it been easier? Has it been harder? What are some of the main differences that you've noticed from coaching men to women?
Yeah, I don't think the coaching styles necessarily changed, because I think who I am as a coach is who I will be as a coach. I think I found my style and my lane and who I want to be and how I coach. I think one of the biggest differences is I feel like the women want to learn a lot more and the men just kind of want to play a lot more. I think on the women's side, there's more questions that are very tactical, very insightful, and they're trying to make sure they get full pictures. So you've really got to know your stuff. I think on the men's game, sometimes you have, especially in college with the younger men, a little bit more, you're dealing with egos, and a lot more people think they know a lot more things. I think that's a difference I've seen. But I enjoy the conversations on the women's side of the tactics, of the details, because it keeps you sharp. You got to know your stuff, otherwise you're not getting that respect. But I think in terms of the coaching style, I think it's been pretty much the same. Obviously, it's different in terms of being a head coach in college to an assistant coach now, kind of knowing the difference in the roles within an assistant coach and a head coach. So understanding that role, understanding that lane, but the style itself, I'd say, is pretty much the same.
Yeah, okay. So talk to me about the differences in, managing the organisation from college to now the professional games. I know from our chats that we've had, there's less of all the other stuff that goes on, the eligibility, the paperwork and stuff. You feel like you can coach more now, but what do you think is sort of the more of the difference having made that next jump?
Yeah, I think in the pro game, now, I say this, but you're obviously dealing with, at the top Division 1 levels, they've got a lot of staff, but I think in the pro game, you've got staff that are directly responsible for different areas of the players' game and lifestyle, and on the field and off the field, and lots of resources to use. I think when you're at college, at least at the level we was at, you're wearing a lot of different hats.
Of course.
Helping them with class, helping them in admissions, you're helping on the field, helping them on to play soccer, to train, lots of different things in the gym. We did have a strength coach actually, OC, who was good. I think in the pro game, my role now is solely on football. And it's how to help them in football. Of course, we're still there for them as human beings, and where we can, we help. But they've got a lot more resources accessible to them, and if they don't have a resource, we definitely try and provide that resource. But when you get to the pro game, they're not in school anymore. It is their job. It's what they're doing. It's what they're committed to through the day. When you need them to be there, they are there. So I think that's a big difference. Probably the most enjoyable part as well is that there's a lot more time spent on football. That doesn't necessarily mean a lot more time spent on the field. It means there's a lot more time spent in football, which can be off the field and doing video and watching clips with players. And I do a lot of the scouts, so getting scouts prepared, and then obviously training as well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And where do you think the women's game is headed? Because I know from the chats we've had, just the resources and the money that's getting pumped into it in America, it's just on a different level. Like, we are light years behind in this country.
Yeah. I think I don't know where it's going to end up. I think it's going to end up as a top sport in the world. Even if you look at, I've been watching a few of the English games, women's games. You see the amount of fans that are showing up now. I think England just played America. I think it was 70,000 at Wembley. I think if you watch Arsenal have been playing at Emirates and been selling out stadiums.
Yeah, wow.
And then obviously over here in the NWSL, I know this year it was record attendances at games. It was record attendances watched online. So everything's just going up and up and up. I think the leagues here and all over the world are putting more an emphasis and focus on making it the best it can be, giving players everything they need to be. I think that helps players be better, which then in turn increases views and gets more people involved because the game's at a higher level. So I think that's going to continue to go up. And obviously here in America, it keeps growing, right? They just added the new league on the women's side. 2 more teams have been announced for the NWSL in 2026. So the league's going to grow by another 2. So it's just continuous growth, and it's the right people at the top who are investing money in the right ways and hopefully getting a return on that. And I think it's good to see.
Yeah, brilliant. That is good. Even you and I were chatting the other day. What was it? Disney have bought the new franchise in LA, I wanted to say. Like, you could probably, elaborate on the details a little bit further. Wasn't it like $200 million worth of funding's gone into the club or something?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact number, but I just know there's a lot of money going around now to buy a club, to buy a franchise, and you've got now the not only are these teams and companies buying clubs and owning clubs, but they're building stadiums, right? You've got Kansas have got a women's only stadium, brand new stadium for them only. So you've got these little things happening now, which they do it, so now someone else needs to do it. So the standards just go up and up because there's somebody doing it. So it's not that they're just buying it to say they own it. They're buying it but investing in it. How can we make the training centre nicer? How can we make the fields nicer? What can we do at the stadium? What can we do around the stadium for people who live there? So there's a lot of good things going on for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. To think I want all the Australian girls to be listening to this podcast, especially this back end of it, and just start to understand, like, look, this is where the women's game is headed, and this is the leaps and bounds that they're taking in America at the moment, the resources, the infrastructure. It's an exciting time. I think you're in a pretty unique spot, taking the jump that you did from college to the role that you're in now. Who knows where it could take you? You might be in the Prem in no time.
You never know. No, and I think obviously along the way there's been people who take risks and gambles on you, right? If you look back at first time at MacU and that AD giving you a chance to then now in the women's game with Bev who's there, who's giving you a chance, given that you've not really coached in the women's game, that you've been in college, like it takes a big chance. And obviously the GM at the time saying, yep, we'll hire this guy. I think there's people along the way that open doors for you to step into, and like you said, I think it was the right time for me. It's what needed. But yeah, for anyone in Australia, and I know that's where you are listening, like there's no end to the heights that the women's game is going to go. I genuinely think not only in America, but I genuinely think like across European countries as well. I know in South America, the game's massive. The women's game is massive. I know people don't like to talk about it, but the contract, the monies, and all that type of stuff's going up and up and up, where it's becoming very, very good to be a part of it, which, look, people don't play for just that, but I know that's a big reason of it, and it's attractive to a lot of people. But yeah, I think across all the continents, it's just taken off, and I think it's good to see, and people that keep out competing each other and trying to be the best and wanting to be the best. So man, I don't know where the end's going to be. I think there is no end. I think it just keeps going up. I think their goal is probably going to be to rival what they foresee as the best leagues in the world in soccer.
Lastly, this is a new thing I wanted to introduce to the pod, just to leave the listeners with. Someone like yourself that's been a young athlete previously, obviously football mad, growing up. If you could go back to a young Mitch Sowerby, high school, still playing in the UK, etc., what would one bit of advice you could give him moving forward?
Yeah, I think for me it would be believe in yourself more. I think that's something I've learned along the way is when you believe in yourself more and you're more convicted in what you're doing and you do think you'll do what you want to be able to do and you work hard for it, I think it is attainable. And I think if you listen and watch top athletes in the world, business professionals, whatever it might be, even mothers that have reached the height of motherhood that all they want to do is be a stay-at-home mom, I think they all say is like you have to believe in the process and work hard in the process and you'll get to where you want to be. Belief, if I look back, I would never have thought I'd be where I am now. And I kind of go back and go, okay, if I believed in myself a little bit more and I had the faith and belief that it is achievable and it is attainable, where else could we be? What else could we be doing? So I think for me, it would be that.
Brilliant. Sound bit of advice. Well, mate, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today. I know our conversations are less frequent these days in your line of work, but it's great to catch up nonetheless. And I do think there's a lot of really sound advice that's been communicated today throughout the pod. So again, thank you very much for your time. It was much appreciated.
No, I appreciate you, mate. Hopefully we can do a round 2 sometime if people have questions.
That's it.
And yeah, it's hard to get a hold of you because I don't even know what time zone you're in.
We'll do the next one when you signed up in the Premier League then, yeah?
Got it.
All right, mate. Thank you very much.
All right, mate. Appreciate you. Thank you.